First off, we have Ricardo dos Santos. My apologies for, I'm sure, atrocious pronunciation, but Ricardo is a clinical psychologist and researcher, a PhD student in social psychology at University of São Paulo, with a research internship at University of Greenwich. He has a master's in religious studies from Pontifical Catholic University of São Paulo, and he studies animalistic psychology, psychedelics, Western esotericism, New Age spirituality, and mental health. Today we have a talk with, now it's on the screen, so you know precisely the title. Yeah, Ricardo, take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you see the screen as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, good afternoon. So I would like to start, thank you everybody for the opportunity to share a little bit of my studies. And I'm going to start with a poem from D.H. Lawrence, which is called Phoenix. He says, "Are you willing to be sponged out, erased, cancelled, made nothing? Are you willing to be made nothing? Dip it into oblivion. If not, you will never really change." Let me change the screen. So I don't know if anyone knows about ayahuasca. So I'm going to start talking a little bit of this context. What is ayahuasca? The first thing I understand it's important for us to understand is the name ayahuasca, which means in Quechua language, the union of the words aya, which means dead, person, soul, or spirit, and the word huasca, which means hope, vine, liana. We can translate that something like the hope of the dead or the vine of the spirits. And I think this is very important for us, for the themes we're going to talk about. The first, it's not that easy to understand the process of ayahuasca use, but I'm going to try to separate in 4 principal stages, major stages. The first one would be the original one, which is the shamanic original use. We know there is at least 72 Amazonian indigenous tribes that use ayahuasca today. The second stage would be the vegetalist use. We say vegetalistas. That would be a hybrid use. Basically, a vegetalist is someone that is an indigenous person that are already in a transition with other cultures and people. In this picture, there is Pablo Marinho. He's a visionary painter. We can only see his paintings because he shared his culture with us. At least in Brazil, we have a third helm of the use of ayahuasca that would be the religious use, that basically founded by individuals who had access to the forest and the brew and already had some previous religious background, major Catholic. Most of these people are rubber extractors, so they go into the forest, they find out these vegetalistas, they drink the brew, and they have visionary experiences. In this picture, we can see Santo Daime Church in a ceremony, and I think it's important for us, at least, to see that the glass of the church is a tree of life from Kabbalah. The last, but not least, people who use ayahuasca, it's a more contemporary one, would be the neo-shamanic context. Basically, is people from a new age perspective that use the brew for different kind of purpose, basically being more healthier, connecting with their own selves, and they have also a hybridization of symbols and practice, like in Brazil, at least we have like rituals that people take ayahuasca and meditate for Buddha or Shiva or Parvati, entities like that. And it's not entities that we find in Amazon, but it works, at least at some level. Just very briefly, I want to talk about the religious from Brazil that uses ayahuasca. The most famous one is the Santo Daime. It was founded by Raimundo Irineu Serra in the mid-30s on the border between Brazil and Bolivia. Irineu also was a rubber extractor, and he took ayahuasca with some vegetalistas. I'm going to talk about Barquinha as well in the same package, because Barquinha and Santo Daime are actually sisters, because Daniel Pereira de Matos, who was the founder of Barquinha, which we can translate as little boat, because he was a sailor. He was a friend of Irineu, and he drank a lot. He had a lot of fun. He used to play the guitar in Rio Branco, Acre, in Brazil, and he has some problems with alcohol addiction. And Irineu invited him to drink ayahuasca and maybe get rid of his problem, and he actually did. But in this process, as is very common to happen, he has some visionary experiences. He saw some beings that asked him to found his own line of ayahuasca work, which has more emphasis on the sea and water symbolism. And he was a sailor, so I think that's relevant for us. Here are some esoteric influences in Santo Daime and Barquinha. I believe this is a subject that not lots of people knows about it. There is a lot of esoteric influences in these ayahuasca religions. Just to say some of them, there is a consensus among researchers and some members of Santo Daime and Barquinha that Irineu was affiliated both to a Rosicrucian order in Brazil and the esoteric circle of the Communion of the Thought, which is kind of the first esoteric order in Brazil. They used to have these magazines where they share some esoteric contents, and people from all Brazil kind of make groups and study them. The major influences was the Martinist order and the Alchemical Society of France, and some authors like Allan Kardec, Camille Flammarion, Max Handel, and Blavatsky. And here on the right, just some examples of the influence of these esoteric symbols in the Santo Daime culture. This book called Cruz de Caravaca was a book sold by this esoteric circle of the Communion of Thought and became one of the most famous symbols from Santo Daime, just like the Star of David. The last ayahuasca religion is the union of the plant, if we can translate like that, União do Vegetal, which was founded in 61 by this also a rubber extractor called José Gabriel da Costa. And he also had the drink with some vegetalistas and had this major experience. Visionary beings appear to him and say that he has to start a new religion that would bring peace to the world. The most esoteric influences in this particular group, in my opinion, is the figures of King Solomon and Melchizedek, because they are very central in the group mythology. And also Freemasonry, because lots of the members are Freemasons, and the symbols are spread all over the hymns, the structure of the churches, and everything. What is ayahuasca in the botanical point of view? The most common mixture of ayahuasca is Banisterops caapi, which is kind of a vine, which is here on the left, and Psychotria viridis, which is a type of plant. When you drink just the plant, which has the active principle of DMT, nothing happens. You have to mix with the vine so your blood can absorb the DMT, and then you have the major experiences. We can say that ayahuasca acts simultaneously in two ways. The high levels of serotonin provoke a special state of awareness, and the action of the DMT in the nervous system causes a dream-like experience. So the person that drinks it kind of have this intense imaginary and dreamlike experience, but also very, very aware. I want to talk now about motive that in my research, I realized that's very relevant in all of these religions and these rituals, which is the motive of death and rebirth. DMT, it's a molecule that seems to incite psychological near-death experience. There's a lot of studies that show these similarities between near-death experiences and the experience of taking the DMT and ayahuasca. Just to say some of them, some of the authors like Rick Strassman, Benny Shannon, Christopher Timmerman, and Dave DeLuc, who I had the pleasure of studying in London, the University of Greenwich. Benny Shannon has this awesome book called The Antipodes of the Mind, which basically he interviewed lots of people about what they see when they take the ayahuasca and also his own experiences. And he writes that the indigenous Amerindians, when they take yagé, which is another name for ayahuasca, they take it to die. I have never experienced myself dying, but several of my informants told me of visions in which they found themselves undergoing death. In all cases, the agonizing experience culminated in profound transformation, experienced as salvation and or rebirth. All informants characterize this experience as the most powerful they have ever had with the brew. And you guys are gonna see that I put some images, some alchemical plates that kind of look like of some of the descriptions that are going to be in the next slides. Let me change here, 1 second. We may consider that one of the most common themes within not only the ayahuasca experience, but also the shamanic tradition as well, is these archetypal experiences of psych transformation, of death and rebirth. This is a theme that a lot of authors had already shown in their work, like Lévi-Strauss, Mircea Eliade, Michael Harner, Carlos Castaneda, and we know that this is a very common experience, at least in the initiation of the shaman. It's we can find a lot of stories about the shamans that kind of have their death and then they come back to life as a shaman. They have to go through this process to become a shaman for their tribes. Eliade said that we find that the central theme of initiation ceremony, the shattering of the neophyte's body and renewal of its organs, ritual death followed by resurrection and mystical fullness. This is just a short story about one of the most famous padrinhos from Santo Daime, which is called Sebastião. And it's said that after taking Daime, which is the name they give to ayahuasca in Santo Daime, if we could translate, Daime would mean something like give me. So they used to sing Daime luz, Daime força, which would be like give me light, give me strength. And then they just use the name give me as Daime. So Padrinho Sebastião had a series of powerful visionary experiences. In one of these experiences, he watched from outside his body as two beautiful beings took out his skeleton and abdominal organs from his body without any pain, all the while vibrating his body, rocking it from side by side. This being then used a hook that opened, separated, and extracted from these abdominal organs 3 nail-sized insects, which the beings of light claimed were responsible for Padrinho Sebastião's illness. This we can find in this great work called Entheogenic Mysticism from William Bernard. As we can see, there is some motives that kind of repeat themselves. We can see some similarities with the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell said. There was this whole process of the hero to become more awareness, to be in kind of an adventure and learn something and fight some monster or something, and then come back with some knowledge, something that he knew in this process. we can think like there are a lot of stories and myths that talk about this process. We can think that psychologically, Carl Jung named this process as a katabasis, which is a descent to a lower or inner hell, which is an archetypal motive of the individuation process as well. Some of the main gods and heroes of antiquity also took the journey of descending into the underworld and returning to the world of living in katabasis and anabasis that reflects the cycles of nature. This was the case of Inanna in Sumeria, Marduk in Babylon, Ra and Osiris in Egypt, and the agrarian gods Dionysus and Persephone celebrated in Eleusis. Among the heroes related to the classical period, we can say that Heracles, Theseus, Orpheus, and Odysseus performed these katabasis with different objectives. And in Christianity, we have Lazarus and Christ himself descended to the mansion of death, and then the resurrection. And in the Renaissance world, Dante was taken by Virgilio to the different abodes of the soul, of souls. Rituals with ayahuasca could provide the opportunity for its participants to experience a symbolic death as an initiation, thus allowing an assimilation of unconscious contents, enabling the ego to dive into the bowels of the psyche. This symbolic process is portrayed in alchemy by steps of nigredo, albedo, and rubedo transformation. This first stage, nigredo, can be constellated with other operations, just like mortificatio or separatio. We don't have time to go too deep in this process and these operations, but there is a great book from Edward Edinger, which is called Anatomy of Psyche, the alchemical symbolism in psychotherapy. And he says that mortificatio is the most negative operation in alchemy. It has to do with darkness, defeat, torture, mutilation, death, and rotting. However, these dark images often lead over positive ones, growth, resurrection, rebirth, but the hallmark of mortification is the color black. Transmutation of consciousness are an essential motive of esoteric thought. Antoine Fabre points out that the essential characteristics of esoteric thinking and places the transmutation experience as one of the four intrinsic characteristics of this way of thinking. And he says that it seems that an important part of the alchemical corpus, especially since the beginning of the 7th century, had its object less than the description of laboratory experiments than the figurative presentation of this transmutation according to a market path. Nigredo, as a death, a decapitation of the first matter or the old man. We can see this as a symbolical ego, some part of us that no longer makes sense. The albedo, work in white, the rubedo, work in red, the philosopher's stone. Sorry?
Hi, Ricardo. One time, so can you speed up a bit or wrap pretty quickly?
This is the last one. This is the last
one. Powerful. Sorry then. Please.
No problem. And then not only bad things happen when you take ayahuasca. I just give some focus on the nigredo and these dark experiences that people call peias or bad trips. But also there are good things in the end of the process. And just to illustrate some of this imagery, I chose one of this Shannon when he said about things that people see also with ayahuasca, which basically is objects in ayahuasca visions are made out of gold, precious stones, and crystal. All these materials that shine and glitter. On a couple of occasions, I saw visions comprised exclusively of artifacts made of gold. The most salient of these were crowns. Truly, it was a golden experience. That's it. Sorry for the English. I hope you all enjoyed it.